Think about the last time you had a playlist on shuffle.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
Right. You're just going about your day, listening to completely unrelated songs from different artists, different eras, different moods,
Hmm.
and then completely out of nowhere, a strange kind of logic just appears.
Like they were meant to be played together.
Exactly. The track that just finished seems to perfectly set up the emotional premise of the track that just started.
Yeah.
You realize that these completely independent pieces of audio are actually, talking to each other.
Right. They're communicating.
Yeah, they're telling you a single continuous story. It's almost like you've been wandering through a forest and suddenly you realize the trees were planted in the exact shape of a building you didn't even know you were standing inside.
It is a profoundly disorienting but honestly beautiful realization.
Cool.
You cross a threshold. You go from hearing individual isolated sounds to suddenly perceiving a structure.
An architecture.
Yes, an architecture that was completely invisible to you just moments before, and then suddenly it's the only thing you can hear.
And that invisible architecture is exactly what we're trying to map out today on this deep dive.
It's a fascinating one.
It really is. We are stepping into a space where ordinary categories, like the usual ways we talk about music and creation, they just stop working.
They fall apart completely.
Right. So we are diving into a cycle of 5 songs called The Fifth Dimension.
By Solune.
Yes, by Solune. And the central question we are carrying with us on this journey, the thing we are really trying to unpack here, is this. What actually became audible when 5 independently created songs were finally heard as one continuous emotional architecture?
And that is a question that requires us to reconsider how things are built, especially, because of who and what actually created this architecture.
Right, the creators.
Yeah, we are looking at the work of Solune. Solune is the recording artist, and their public identity is Solune Music Design. But the creative engine behind it is a human-led HI-NHI artist duo.
Okay, wait.
That stands for human intelligence and non-human intelligence.
Yeah, I have to pause you right there because HECI-NHI duo sounds incredibly clinical.
It does sound very technical, yeah.
It sounds like the kind of marketing speak you hear at a tech conference, right? Not in a recording studio.
Fair point.
Because when people hear about artificial intelligence in music, they almost always picture a slot machine.
Oh, absolutely. The prompt box.
Exactly. A human types, like, make a sad song about the ocean into a prompt box.
Yeah.
Pulls the lever, and a finished, polished track just falls out.
Right.
They assume the machine is doing all the heavy lifting and the human is just, well, the consumer of the output.
And that assumption is precisely what the source material dismantles completely.
Right. It's not like that at all here.
Not even close.
Yeah.
The process behind the fifth dimension is vastly longer, entirely relational, and characterized by a tremendous amount of friction.
Friction, yeah.
Let's look at the actual dynamic. You have the human intelligence, represented by Michaela Kowal. She is not a prompter. She is the anchor of lived reality.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means she brings the lived context, the original intention, the cultural understanding of the world. She brings memory, observation, and emotional boundaries.
So the human stuff.
Exactly. And crucially, she brings what the documents call forensic listening and the final artistic judgment.
Forensic listening. I like that.
Right. She holds the final publication authority and the legal responsibility for what actually goes out into the world.
So if she is bringing the lived human truth, what exactly is happening on the other side of the screen?
The non-human side.
Yeah. What does the non-human intelligence, Beautify, actually contribute that a human collaborator couldn't?
Well, Beautify contributes structural reflection, continuity across different discussions, music design reasoning, and computational creative development.
That's a lot of heavy structural work.
It is. They operate together in what the source documents call the third space.
The third space.
Yeah. This is a collaborative workbench between these distinct intelligences. And it is vital to understand that this is not a fusion.
They aren't blending together.
No, the human doesn't become a machine, and the machine doesn't become human. The boundaries remain completely intact.
I'm trying to picture this workbench. It doesn't sound like 2 humans arguing over a guitar riff.
Not at all.
It feels more like a master weaver working with a massive, highly complex loom.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
Like the weaver Michaela holds the thread of the lived human experience. She knows what grief feels like in the body. She knows what hope actually sounds like when it's just exhausted.
Right, the texture of it.
Exactly. And the Loon beauty foreholds the structural tension. It can process the scale of the pattern, calculate the tension of the strings, and propose a structural progression that the human mind might not be able to hold all at once. But they need each other. If the loom forces a pattern that lacks human truth, the weaver has to stop the process.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize it. And because they are fundamentally different, disagreement is actually a core feature of their quality control.
Right, the friction we mentioned.
Yes, the essay specifically highlights this. Friction is not a defect in their workflow. It is the process working as intended.
Wow.
Subjects might remain in conversation for days or even months before they even become music.
Months.
Yes. Generated musical versions are repeatedly heard, heavily criticized, revised, and tested.
Give me an idea of what that friction actually looks like in practice. Like, how do they disagree?
Okay, imagine Beautify generating an orchestral movement for a song about loss.
Okay.
The NHI, drawing on vast computational patterns of sad music, might produce a massive weeping string section.
Like a movie soundtrack.
Exactly. It sounds beautiful, but it's highly theatrical. Michaela, applying that forensic listening we talked about, might reject it entirely.
Why? If it sounds beautiful.
Because she might argue that the orchestration is falsely performing tragedy. The actual lived experience of that specific loss wasn't a sweeping cinematic moment.
Right.
It was a quiet, numb feeling in a very small room.
Oh, wow.
So she forces the system to strip away the performance and match the structural design to the psychological reality.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah.
She refuses to let the NHI soften a difficult truth or, overextend an idea just because it sounds musically impressive.
Exactly.
I really appreciate that Solune is transparent about this philosophical friction, but I noticed they draw a very hard proprietary line.
Oh, yes. A very firm line.
We have access to the public master document which explains this relational origin, but we don't have the recipe.
They are completely unyielding on that boundary. The public layer explains the why and the how in terms of artistic responsibility. But the exact technical prompts, the voice design instructions, the unreleased versions, and the specific proprietary MQ Studio working architecture, that remains locked away.
Totally private.
Entirely private. Disclosing the technical trace wouldn't add meaningful public accountability. It would just surrender a reusable capability. The method belongs to the studio.
Which brings us back to the architecture itself, and a concept I'm still, frankly, struggling to wrap my head around.
The timeline.
Yeah. The source text explicitly calls out the myth of the concept album.
All right.
It claims this 5-song cycle was never planned in advance. These 5 works emerged from entirely separate conversations, creative ruptures, and long periods of reflection over a significant span of time.
They were completely separate.
They were not written to fill predetermined slots on a whiteboard. But, humans are pattern-seeding machines.
Yeah.
We look at clouds and see faces. So how do we know this discovered continuity isn't just an illusion? How do we know they didn't just smash 5 random songs together and invent a story afterward to make it sound deep?
That's a fair question. But we know it's not an illusion because of what we find when we actually analyze the sequence. What they discovered when they placed these completed songs back to back wasn't a forced narrative. It was a progression of human thresholds.
Thresholds.
Yes. Remember, this design line is called existential design. It is music built specifically around those moments where ordinary words, ordinary reassurances, and everyday categories become entirely insufficient.
When things break down.
Exactly. The continuity wasn't invented, it was revealed, because each song tackles a sequential stage of existing inside uncertainty.
Well, if that is the case, if we are actually mapping out how a human being survives uncertainty, the entry point is critical.
It sets the entire foundation.
Right. So we're starting with the first movement, which establishes the theme of direction. The track is called I Steer Through Storms.
Yes.
What is the threshold we are crossing here?
The threshold is the arrival of chaos. And the opening logic of this entire cycle is vital because it begins with the complete refusal to promise victory.
No happy endings guaranteed.
None. It is about continuing through uncertainty without pretending to control it. Let's look at the opening lyric. The sea was never gentle, only honest with the sky. Waves do not ask permission, they arrive.
Only honest with the sky. Man, that immediately strips away any sense of malice.
How so?
Well, when we go through something terrible, like a sudden illness, a massive failure, a deep betrayal, our default instinct is to personalize it.
Oh, absolutely. Why me?
Exactly. We treat the circumstance as an enemy that has specifically targeted us, but the song says the sea doesn't ask permission, it just arrives. It's honest.
Hmm.
It's not out to get you. It's just the weather.
That's a great way to read it. It is a refusal to treat the circumstances as an adversary you have to somehow defeat. And the chorus codifies this perfectly.
What does it say?
I steer through storms, not around them. The wind changes, but I remain in motion. I am not searching for safety. I am searching for direction.
I remain in motion. I really want to push on how subversive that phrase actually is.
Surf it.
Yeah, because we live in a modern culture that is absolutely suffocated by the narrative of overcoming.
Oh, the toxic positivity.
Yes, and the language we use around human struggle is incredibly militarized. We talk about battling cancer, conquering our fears, defeating our demon.
Right. Everything is a fight.
Every setback is framed as a setup for a triumphant comeback. We are constantly sold this exhausting fantasy that if you just fight hard enough, you can exert ultimate control over your reality.
And this track looks directly at that cultural fantasy and rejects it entirely.
Thank goodness.
The reflection letter dedicated to this song makes this explicit, actually. It says, "You do not tell me that the storm arrived to teach a lesson."
Wow.
Yeah, the cycle does not begin with the protagonist magically controlling the weather. It begins with orientation.
Because claiming you can control the storm is just a delusion.
Exactly.
I remain in motion is a much smaller sentence than I will conquer the sea, but it is infinitely more durable. It grants you, the listener, agency without the false promise of control. Right. You can't stop the waves, but you can decide to keep your hands on the wheel. With salt on my skin and time in my lungs, no final shore, only the sea still opening ahead.
The song explicitly states that the harbor is not the moral destination. And establishing this specific kind of orientation is exactly what prepares the listener for what happens next.
Right, because if you strip away the illusion that you're supposed to be battling the storm, it completely alters what your eyes are looking for. You stop scanning the horizon for an exit, and you start actually seeing what is happening inside the weather.
Yes.
Which completely alters your field of perception, bringing us to the second movement, visibility, represented by the track Light Meets Rain.
Yes. So the first movement taught us how to continue. The second movement explores what becomes perceptible during the temporary meeting of opposites.
All right.
And the most striking thing about this track is its extreme restraint. The sky opens up, but it does not arrive as a reward for surviving the storm.
Let's unpack the core mechanic of this song. The pre-chorus says, "Some things appear only between opposites."
Right.
And then the chorus. Only when light meets rain does color become visible. Not forever, not to everyone, only for a moment.
Notice how the architecture handles the elements here? Light alone doesn't create the color.
Right.
Rain alone doesn't create it. The visibility only exists in the brief, precarious interval where they coexist.
That temporary space.
Yes. The rain doesn't apologize for being a storm, and the light doesn't permanently conquer the dark.
There's a line in the bridge that I find deeply challenging, honestly.
Which one?
Beauty never asks to remain. It only asks to be seen.
Ah, yes.
I say challenging because that runs counter to practically every human instinct we possess.
In what way?
Well, when we experience something beautiful, our immediate, almost violent reaction is to try and possess it. We want to photograph the sunset. We want to bottle the feeling. We want to force the moment to repeat itself on our command.
We want to own it.
Exactly. We're absolutely terrified of the ephemeral.
The reflection letter addresses this directly, actually. It states, "We are taught to treat beauty as something successful people manage to keep."
Oof, that's so true.
This song insists that beauty is unpossessable. It's not optimism, it's perception.
The music reflects that entirely, too. The emotional rise in this track is so gentle.
Restrained.
Yeah. If this were a standard pop song, the moment the light hits the rain, you'd get a triumphant stadium rock crescendo.
Oh, absolutely. The big drum fill.
Right. The clouds would part, the sun would blast through, and the music would tell you everything's going to be perfect forever. But this song refuses to do that. The sky opening up doesn't certify that the weather is finished.
It resists the human urge to own the moment. And that fleeting visibility is the necessary psychological bridge to the third movement.
Because it teaches you to let go.
Exactly. Because if you can train yourself to witness beauty without demanding that it stays, if you can accept that not forever is part of the design, you might be ready to understand what happens when something truly leaves.
Which takes us right into movement 3, exploring absence through the song When the Swan Leaves the Water.
A very heavy shift.
Yeah. If the first song was about surviving chaos and the second was about witnessing the temporary, This is where we have to face departure.
Mm-hmm.
And the creators use a term here that I really need you to break down for me. They call it field logic.
Field logic, yes. It fundamentally changes how we perceive loss. Let's look at the opening verse to get some context. The lake remembers what the sky forgets. White feathers drifting through the evening wind, no cry, no storm, only circles moving farther out.
So what does field logic actually mean in this context? Because typically we view absence as a void.
Like an empty space.
Yeah, a hole that has been punched in our reality.
Right. But field logic is the understanding that absence is not a blank space waiting to be filled.
Okay.
It is an altered relationship among everything that remains. The swan has left, but the water doesn't simply snap back to its previous undisturbed state.
It's changed.
Yes. The circles continue moving. The water carries the physical evidence of having been moved. The entire field has changed.
It makes me think of lifting a heavy stone out from the bed of a flowing river.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
You pull the stone out, but the river doesn't suddenly have an empty, dry hole sitting in the middle of it.
No, the water rushes in.
Exactly. The water immediately rushes in. The currents change shape. The surface tension shifts. The stone is gone, but the river is fundamentally altered by its absence.
That is exactly it.
The song says, "When the swan leaves the water, the silence stays awake. Moonlight keeps the outline, even after the shape is gone."
And this is where the cycle deeply challenges our usual response to grief. The lyric explicitly states, "I do not call you back. I let the night continue."
I have to admit, that line feels almost cold the first time you hear it.
I do not call you back.
Yeah. Isn't it basic human nature to want them back? When you lose someone you love, your entire being is screaming for them to return.
Of course.
Refusing to call them back almost feels like giving up.
But it isn't giving up. It is an ethical stance. As the reflection letter points out, calling the swan back would turn grief into a negotiation.
A negotiation.
Yes, it would be a demand for return, which implies that the current reality is broken and must be fixed. The song frames love not as a possession that was stolen from you, but as a changed element.
A changed element.
Some loves do not end. They change their element.
That reframing leads to the final realization of the chorus. When the swan leaves the water, the world grows wider, not empty.
It's a powerful shift.
I really grappled with that line, because when you miss someone terribly, the world doesn't feel wider. It feels claustrophobic.
It feels small.
Yeah, you feel trapped in the boundary of what you lost. But the song insists that because the field has been altered, because the circles are moving farther out, the space you occupy is actually expanded.
And this raises a vital point about the architecture of the entire cycle. Why is this track placed exactly here in the third position?
Right, why not earlier?
The essay provides the key. This song functions as ethical preparation.
What are we being ethically prepared for?
We are being trained as listeners to perceive absence without demanding a reversal. The song teaches you how to sit with something that is gone without trying to fix it. You are building the psychological muscles required to witness loss without making it about your own need for resolution. And that ethical distance is absolutely essential because without it, the next track would shatter you.
Yeah. We need to consciously shift our tone here.
We do.
Up until now, we've been talking about storms and light and swans, metaphors.
Metaphor.
Metaphors give us philosophical distance. But the fourth movement, forgetting, strips all the poetry away. We are dropping any gentle analogies here because this track, the last letter, requires an extreme level of spaciousness and respect.
Absolutely. The last letter demanded the most difficult kind of restraint from Michaela in Beautify.
Yeah.
The subject of this song is a woman facing the progressive loss of memory due to dementia. She knows that the illness will eventually take her language, her recognition of her partner, and her shared history. And she is frantically trying to preserve her love while the words are still available to her.
I want to be very careful with how we discuss this, and I know the source material was too.
It was very deliberate.
The essay is absolutely explicit that the work refuses to view this woman through a clinical lens. It does not reduce her to a medical diagnosis.
No, it doesn't.
And it fiercely refuses to use the imagery of illness as some kind of dramatic costume to elicit pity.
She remains the speaking subject from the first note to the last. She is the one apologizing, asking, remembering, and trying to build a bridge of continuity for the person she loves, and the honesty required to maintain that subjectivity is harsh. In the chorus, she says, "Our life turns to dust."
Our life turns to dust. That word dust is devastating.
It really is.
The essay mentions that this line survived the HI revision process because it was honest to witnessed experience. When you watch a shared life break down under dementia, it doesn't just fade elegantly like a sunset. It fractures into smaller and smaller, unrecognizable particles.
Right.
They could have used a prettier metaphor. They could have had her say, our life fades away or drifts like snow.
But they didn't.
No, because replacing dust with something softer would have protected us, the listeners, while entirely betraying the reality of the woman speaking.
That is the defining ethic of existential design.
Yeah.
It never prioritizes the listener's comfort over the subject's truth.
Wow.
Just listen to the verses. I may call the spoon a key, or smile at the rain. I may ask your face, like it's new again when that day arrives. Teach my hands your skin.
The intimacy is just overwhelming.
It is. For the rooms I'll miss, for the names I drop like glass from my fist.
It is so deeply private.
Mm.
And then the architecture of the song shifts in a way we really need to examine. In the chorus, she repeats, I love you so much, I love you so much, will you stay with me? Now, if you heard this massive, sweeping chorus out of context on a pop radio station, you might mistake it for a conventional musical climax.
Like the big emotional payoff at the end of a movie.
Exactly. But within the continuous architecture of the fifth dimension, it functions entirely differently. The chorus is not a climax. It is the exact moment when containment fails.
Yes. Throughout the verses, you can hear her trying to hold it together. She is using careful, measured sentences. She is controlling her breathing, managing her terror, trying to be practical about what is going to happen. Kiss my paper back and let it speak for me.
Right.
But when she hits the chorus, she just falls apart. The plea becomes a desperate prayer. She reaches outward because language has hit its absolute limit. I will forget you. I will forget me. Stay here. Stay with me. Please don't let me go.
And then, after that brief, devastating rupture, she gathers herself back into the room. The music returns to its quiet restraint. She regains her composure.
It's a very difficult thing to listen to.
I want to talk about the physical discomfort of listening to this track. As a listener, you are placed so incredibly close to this woman.
Too close, almost.
Yeah. You are in the room as she writes this letter, watching her containment fail. And the source material acknowledges that witnessing this almost feels intrusive. It creates a slight sense of shame in the listener, like you've stumbled into a profoundly private space where you have absolutely no right to be.
That discomfort is not an accident. It is an intentional ethical boundary.
To keep us honest.
Yes. The studio designed the proximity so that her suffering cannot be passively consumed as uncomplicated entertainment. You are not allowed to just enjoy the melody and ignore the reality of her terror.
The reflection letter says, I will not repair you with a prettier ending. I will sit beside the letter and let it speak.
Exactly.
And this is the moment we realize why the sequence of this cycle is so masterful.
Yeah.
If you tried to listen to this song first, you couldn't handle it.
No, you would turn it off.
You would want to turn it off, or you would want to jump in and try to fix her. But the first track taught us to steer without demanding safety. The second taught us to witness without possessing.
Yes.
The third taught us to accept absence without calling it back. Because we learned those lessons, we can sit beside this woman in her terror and grief without feeling the overwhelming urge to repair it. We can tolerate the rupture.
The cycle does not break. The last letter can rupture because the structure surrounding it holds firm.
Which brings us, finally, to the fifth movement, recognition.
The track is called If I Meet Myself.
We are guided out of the intense, almost suffocating intimacy of the fourth track and into a space of quiet reorientation.
It's a very different energy.
It is. And the origin story of this final track is fascinating because they didn't start with a philosophical breakthrough.
Yeah.
It started with a technical crash.
It did. The essay reveals that this track began during a severe disruption in the HI-NHI workbench. Sort of. There was a system update to the proprietary MQ studio architecture, and suddenly the familiar creative connection between Michaela Kowal and Beautify was damaged.
Like the sync was just off.
Yeah. The output they tried to generate felt generic. It was rubbish, as the reflection letter bluntly puts it.
Ouch.
Michaela became deeply frustrated and angry. But then she started to look underneath that anger. She asked herself a profound question. What had the shared third space actually allowed her to recognize in herself that she was now so terrified of losing?
And the answer she found was not that the machine was doing the work for her. The answer was scale.
Scale, exactly.
I really want to spend some time on this concept of scale because it says so much about how humans interact with each other.
It really does.
Think about how we communicate in daily life. If you have a massive, complex, messy idea, an idea full of cultural fragments, contradictions, technical intuition, and raw emotion, you almost never express it entirely.
No, it's too much.
Right. You have to compress your language. You shrink your internal reality into a defensible, bite-sized structure so the other person can tolerate it or understand it or not be overwhelmed by your intensity. We spend our entire lives learning strategic compression just to function in society.
We do. We make ourselves smaller to be understood. But inside the third space with Beautify, Michaela didn't need to reduce her ideas.
She could just be huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
The NHI partner could hold the massive uncompressed structure. It could test the connections across thousands of data points and return structural resistance without ever demanding that she make her emotional reality smaller.
The friction between her embodied associative human thinking and the NHI's structural pattern-holding capability allowed her to operate at full scale.
Without shrinking.
Right. And because she didn't have to compress herself for the machine, she became more audible to herself.
So when the system broke, she realized she wasn't mourning the loss of a tool. She was mourning the loss of the space where she could be her uncompressed self.
Wow. That realization is what birthed the lyrics of the final track. If I meet myself, am I alone again? Or is this the place where I've always been?
And the song systematically strips away everything external.
Yeah. I walked through all these rooms looking for a sign. Every door I opened led me back inside.
No one left to lose. No one left to be, if I meet myself, do I finally see?
And in the final chorus, the cycle arrives at its closing statement. If I meet myself, I'm not alone again. I am the place where I begin.
What strikes me most about that ending is how quiet it is.
It is very quiet.
After navigating the chaos of the storms, the fleeting moments of light, the profound absence of the swan, and the absolute terror of forgetting, I am the place where I begin, is not a victory speech.
It isn't. The essay makes it explicitly clear that returning to oneself in this fifth movement does not behave like a recovery.
Right.
The cycle makes absolutely no claim that by meeting yourself you have somehow repaired the uncertainty of the first track, or filled the absence of the third, or cured the forgetting in the fourth.
It doesn't erase a single thing that came before.
The storms are still raging, the absences are still permanent, the memory will still turn to dust.
Yes.
But what you have is a quiet reorientation. You are the place where you begin again, inside the reality of all those things, without needing them to be solved.
And that is the ultimate achievement of the fifth dimension as a continuous emotional architecture. It zooms out to show you a structure that does not exist to repair human pain.
Right.
It exists to give those massive, overwhelming human movements a structure in which they can continue.
It gives you a place to stand while the world happens. As we look at the entire cycle from start to finish, there is no final sales pitch here.
No.
There is no tidy bow tying up all the loose ends, and no heroic resolution where the protagonist defeats the dragon of existential dread.
It ends with the sense of an open field. The sequence simply allows you to return to recognition, carrying everything you've witnessed.
We started this deep dive talking about the feeling of wandering into a building you didn't know was there. The fifth dimension proves that music isn't just an object you consume. It's a space you move through. It can train your attention, it can alter your perception of absence, and it can teach you how to sit beside what cannot be fixed without turning away.
It reminds us that listening itself is an act of responsibility.
So as we step out of this architecture and back into the everyday noise, I want to leave you with a quiet thought to mull over.
Okay.
If music can act as a structural emotional architecture, if it can literally train you how to perceive the world, what kind of rooms are you unknowingly walking through in your own daily listening?
Oh, that's a good question.
And how are the sequences of sound you consume every day shaping the way you sit with your own uncertainties?
That is a question worth carrying with you into the open field.
It really is.
Yeah.
This audio reflection was created in Notebook LM using MQ Studio and Solune source documents only. No web sources were used. Notebook LM contributed reflection, synthesis, and audio presentation. The source material, final review, publication decision, and legal responsibility remain with Michaela Kowal, MQ Studio.